Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coach's Corner podcast on the Bridging Impact Podcast Network. I'm your host, Coach Furtado, where I share my experience currently as the Frostoff Venice High School coach, also assistant varsity coach, and I'm also share my experience as a substitute teacher and the founder of Bridging Impact, transforming athletes through transforming leaders through athletics. So with that being said, our topic of the day today is it's a flip on, a typical statement that you hear quite often, right? We've all heard of tough love, but how often have you heard about love tough? And this is one that I was inspired from John Gordon. It's not something that's original from, what I've thought about, but I really feel like this is a really important one for a lot of coaches to grasp this message because it's the future of the future of coaching, right? Coaching is an art, right? Mentoring is an art, leading is an art, right? But this is the future of the art. Gone are the days where you can, harp on people all day without building a relationship, without showing that you love and care for them. They won't buy in. They just won't care, right? They need to know that you love them first. And so, I want to talk about what is the difference between love tough and tough love. So tough love is typical coaching, right? Typical coaching is when you're not building relationships with your players and you're harping on them all day, and all you do is expect, them to perform well. And all you really view them as is athletes on that team and what they can get you. Can they get you a championship? Can they get you, a first place in league? And really viewing it as a transactional kind of model. And it's pretty typical actually where I've seen it in coaching, and where you start practice and that's it. You just do practice. There's no engagement, interaction with the team, and so that's one of the big reasons that it's tough love. It's just all it is tough, and then maybe at the end they do love, but love has to come first if you want to be successful in sports nowadays. And so you have to love first and then be tough. And so love tough is, again, it's obviously, it is caring, but it's showing you care, right? Like I've heard quite a few coaches now that I've had the opportunity to work with coaches, just say like, I love you all, like I care for you all. But how do you show it, right? And everyone shows it in a different way. And I don't want to, say that the only way that I show I love and care about people is the right way, because that's wrong. But, there has to be I feel like no matter who you are, there has to be one-on-one interaction. There has to be some sort of connection about sport, or not about, with the athlete outside of sport. Those are the two big things, right? What we talk about, with our athletes may be way different, but we have to have those engagements, and we have to have, those honest conversations with them, and, those conversations where we encourage them, right? And we show them love. We're always supporting them, on and off the court. Whenever we see them, we're building them up. I think it's really about intentionally loving them first. And that is the big difference. But I also want to talk about what happens when, tough love or love tough, when they're out of balance, because you can go wrong with love tough as well. And I'm going to share a little bit of my story that I was learning about this week, and made a big kind of shift in my coaching style. So with that, let's talk about tough love first. Again, if you are a tough love coach, what will often happen is you will burn your players out. You'll just burn your players out. They're going to, either burn them out or they're going to tune you out, one or the other, because they're just like, oh, coach is always on my, he's always, saying, do this, do this, do this. And, I'm trying to do my best, but eventually, like, if there's not enough positive reinforcement and building up of a player, like they're gonna check out, they're gonna go somewhere else. And with the transfer world, if you don't develop that relationship, they don't feel a loyalty to stay. They don't feel a loyalty to listen to you because you haven't built that relationship. And nowadays I feel like it is a responsibility of a coach to build a relationship, and I know it's hard, right? Like where I've kind of getting a glimpse at how challenging it is to be a varsity coach and to be you know in a school administrator and a coach at the same time. There's a lot of administration that goes around, and it doesn't seem like there's enough time. But just building those relationships and showing them you love will help your team not burn out, because that tough love is really, it doesn't connect with this generation of athlete like it may have connected with a generation of athletes in the 80s and 90s. And, even when I was playing, which is about, 10 years ago, is I think it was fading out. I had some coaches that taught that way, and we kind of resented it, but because it was still the norm, we still somewhat responded to it. And I think this generation, especially after the pandemic, really values and craves that connection and love first. So that's what happens when it's tough love and it's out of balance. But it also can be on the opposite spectrum, right? Where love tough, where you all you do is love, and there's no accountability, there's no tough, and that's just like friendship. That's just like kind of like a family, and that's actually not very helpful either. As a coach, mentor, leader, one of our responsibilities, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, or like right now, is we have to hold people accountable, and if we don't, we are doing a disservice to our team, right? Because again, if we want to take our players where they want to go, we have to hold them accountable sometimes when they aren't feeling, especially when you're working, like for me, I'm working with high school athletes, but if you're working middle school and elementary, for sure, right? When you're a kid, if you think back to when you were a kid, you wanted to do things that feel good in the moment. And a lot of times a coach's job is to do what is right for the future. And you got to hold yourself, number one, to that standard, and then hold them to that standard as well. And so I want to share a little bit about this week, Monday, we kind of had a screw around practice. And, sometimes I kind of have a Phil Jackson, laissez-faire approach of just kind of letting things kind of happen and go, and, having to step back. But I think sometimes it's a little bit of lack of holding my team accountable. And I had that conversation with them on Tuesday. I came in, I'm like, all right, enough of this. I'm going to be firm today. I'm going to really hold them accountable. And we had our best practice of the year, right? Like I was on them, holding them to that higher standard. And they really responded well. And it was our best practice of the year. The ball was flying around. We were getting stuff done, and it felt really good. And I was like, okay, this is where we need to be. I need to start holding them, and it's not about being mean. It's about being firm, right? It's being firm, being like, is this what we want? This is not, like just having zero tolerance for it. It doesn't mean that you have to, be a Coach Carter and run them around the field for 10 hours, but it's about your energy and action. And, of course you have to have your positive reinforcement. That's going to help a lot. Having the positive reinforcement is going to help, them understand what you really want to see. But you have to have that tough love accountability within the love tough system, and be like, nah, this is not what we do here. This is not our standard, and we have to hold them to that. And that's something that's a requirement for love tough. So I'm curious, what is your approach with love tough? How do you, make sure that it's a balance, it's an art, right? Because there are going to be some days where you're going to have to like love them up, maybe after a game, depending on your team, or, they might need some tough love, some accountability. And again, right, that goes back to the beginning when I talk about the art of coaching, and it's a everyday process, right? And that's where I really want to Bridging Impact to be an opportunity for you to think about and reflect on your coaching experience and how you do it, and to be, so some, different questions that I want you to think about is, how can you make sure that your athletes know they care about you? And that's number one. And number two, how can you make sure that you are holding them accountable to get to where they want to go? That's what Love Tough is really about, right? Because Bridging Impact, we really want to transform the lives of our athletes so they can go on and be community leaders and go shape the world, right? We are affecting the youth, and so that's our responsibility, and I take a lot of pride into it. And so it's having those conversations, right? Especially for me, and having high school, they're a little bit younger, right? But I want to like really start ingraining into them, why we are doing certain things, like why I really care about, teaching them how to play together, because I want them to be able to work together with people in the outside world once they graduate and finish basketball. So Thank you again for listening to this podcast. Go give it a review wherever you are, whether it's 5 stars on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That would mean the world to me. That's how we help grow the show. Subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe wherever you are, and then share it with a friend if this was impactful for you. Share it on social media. That's how we grow. We had some really great numbers with Spotify Wrapped. We're listened in 5 countries around the world, which is amazing. That's incredible that people in 5 different countries are listening to this podcast and bridging impact to their youth. So, with all that being said, I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you taking time. There's so many other wonderful podcasts, but to listen to this and watch this it just means the world to me. So, stay tuned. Let me know what you think of the show and how I can improve it. And I will be in your eyes and ears next week. Coach Furtado out.